Hello, sir.
Hello, Rob.
How you doing?
I'm doing well overall. I'm a long time listener, first time caller of the show, as I mentioned right before we started. So very grateful to be here.
It is an honor to have you. It is a total mix. Although you do a podcast for long enough, the numbers go up. But it is a total mix on people who have heard the show before. The
Cool.
biggest tell for people, for me, to let me know that you've never heard the show before when I book you on the show is if you say, "Oh my God, well, I don't really have anything to talk about," or "Should I prepare anything?" Those that you say those two things, I know you've never heard this show, and you didn't ask me these things, did you?
No, it's yeah. I really enjoy listening to it on the commute. And I'll say too that you've been doing this for a while, right?
9 years, yeah, on and off.
Yeah, almost a decade. Gosh. Yeah, I remember graduating and finding the show shortly after, and it was just such a balm to that post grad. What am I doing? And you're like, oh yeah, this everyone goes through this.
Yeah, I really, absolutely. I love hearing you say that, bud. And I really appreciate that because that's definitely, first of all, it's what the show was born out of. It would depend on where this show airs, but in and around your episode will be an episode with Daniel and Moan, which I finally got on the podcast, who, for those who don't know, did the music, or should I say, made great music. And I asked if I could steal it and make it part of my creative project. And so the intro and outro is Daniel singing, and he wrote all of it. And I finally got him on the show, and it's so great because that same energy you're talking about of when you first get out and you're trying to figure out what the hell is going to go on next, or maybe you've been out 5, even 10 years, and you're trying to figure out how you fit into everything. Because as much as they try to prepare us for that, that is a tough thing to do. And maybe they're bad at it, or maybe it's too hard. But either way, I think we almost all feel ill-equipped when we leave. And that album that those songs came from, which is called Punk Philosophy, which you can find on all the platforms and stuff. It's on Apple Music and everything. I definitely urge everyone to go listen to that whole album. But he wrote that in that same time and that same feeling, right out of school, like now what do we do? Because unless someone goes, "You're coming with me, kid, off to the big show," like if whatever that means for you,
And it
and it
happens.
happens.
Yeah.
Of course it does. It happens every now and then. And I think too many of us pen too many kind of, maybe not even expectations, but just hope that that'll be us. And so we don't go out of our way to plan whatever the fuck else it's going to be. And so, yeah, this podcast was born in that. The album was born in that, and I'm honored and grateful that more people are finding it like you did right in that time. Because that was also, you said 2018. That was when I was kind of back in it again in California, and we were putting out episodes all the time, and a lot of volume there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let me ask, because I think this will be maybe good for other people who are listening now, who maybe are new, maybe they know you and they don't know the show. If you were to point them in a direction of maybe a couple episodes, and this is not a picking favorites in people, but just episodes maybe that spoke to you then or recently that you could point them to, if that's how they're feeling, that kind of, I just got out of school, what the hell do I do?
I would listen to the part 1, part 2, part 3 with your dear friend.
With Brandon, really?
Yeah, Brandon.
I feel like that gets so personal and about the two of us. And like the show's not even about figuring it out anymore, but we're just kind of talking shit.
There's the universal in the specific.
That's true.
But I really enjoyed those. You had a friend also that I think you were roommates for a while, who's in LA now and is a writer. His story was really, I'm like terrible with names, dude.
Graham Bolin.
Yep.
Yeah, he's tremendous. Did a great one. Yeah, I love that dude. And we got into a cool thing on that I'll point people towards probably about 2/3 of the way in, where we talked about the idea of being creative and splitting up responsibilities between like a more left side of the brain person. And that conversation that we really dove into there, that keeps coming up in like my personal life all the time. Like that's a very relevant thing right now for me and like all the creatives I'm working with. So I would point to that as well. Let's talk about you, bud. Thanks for all of the love. I appreciate it. And everyone go listen to other episodes. But first, finish this one with Trent. Where are you from, buddy?
Yeah, I'm from Gastonia, North Carolina. So that's this county seat of Gaston County. It's 30 minutes west of Charlotte, North Carolina, very firmly in the foothills, about an hour east of Asheville.
And born and raised?
No, I was born in Huntsville, Alabama. My parents,
Ooh.
I think this was like 1990, 1991. They are high school sweethearts. They graduated from UNC Asheville in May, got married in June, and then moved to Alabama in July. And then like 4 years
Where
later,
are they from?
They're from Gaston County. They're from Gaston County. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you just got had out of town. That's all.
That's
and then
right.
they brought you home.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. If we were more
right.
tribal, that's how it would be looked at. Like, oh, they were on the road for kind of an extended time and then they had some. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I do have one awesome younger sister, Morgan. She just turned 15 in August, so there's a little bit of a gap there. But she kind of gets like on Friday I turned 28.
Oh, awesome. Well, happy birthday. Just missed it. I'm on the 28th of July. So a little love there.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, 100%. So you're 28, she's 15. That's a hell of a gap.
13 years. Yeah, I was a teenager sitting in the hospital when she was born.
That is the exact gap between me and my nephew. And it's only because I have such an older sister as well as 9 years older than me. So I didn't quite get to 13, but man, what is that dynamic like for you growing up as an only child for like a really long time? And then that changed. Yeah.
I think about this so much.
I bet.
As far as my relationship with my sister, it's just like pure love. She gets like, I don't know, a grandparent like type presence, but in a like much younger form. So I'm just kind of like,
sometimes the babies have that old soul energy where they just come out like it's clearly someone reincarnated. Clearly that like they make you believe in that.
Totally. Yeah, man. So yeah, I would say my relationship with her is like just so much love there and being like sometimes a little bit like parent 2.5.
Right.
And like a theme with her that I think comes up with other things is like, going through something or having a very specific experience, just this impulse to turn around to the next person who's about to have that experience and be like, hey, I just did this. Here's what's awesome. Here's what you might be able to expect that's not awesome. And here's how to deal with it on the way. And also, text me if you want to talk about it.
Is she receptive to Uncle Brother Trent?
I'm going to say it that way from now on. She is. And I think because I don't try and like constantly dole out advice, because like she gets enough of that, I'm sure already all the time.
Right.
So I just ask her, how's it going? Is there anything on your mind that you want to talk about? And either she'll be like, no, I'm good. Or there'll be a long pause and she'll be like, well,
right. Kind of play therapist, let her, which kind of works because for your background and your soothing tone right now, I'm getting the vibes for sure. That's what my wife does. So I know the vibes. Cool. That's awesome, dude. That's really cool to have that. And do you know, was she like a total random surprise or was that an intentional, let's have another kid way later?
Yeah. My parents were very clear. I mean, like in terms that you would explain to a 12-year-old, they were like, right. You're about to have a sibling. And we just want you to know that we really wanted to have another kid. Up. Yeah. And, it was, so like my birth was really, really difficult. Some people tell me that's why I'm left-handed. Apparently that's a thing. But my mom had like a bunch of health factors going on. Like, yeah. And so I was a C-section born a month early and they like weren't sure how it was going to play out. Right. That's how it goes. Yeah. And so I think, mom and dad,
everyone relax who's listening. It played out. It's fine.
Yeah. It all worked
Trent's
out.
Good. Yeah. We're cool. He went to school of arts. He did great. Okay. You were saying.
Yeah. And then, advances in medicine, I suppose, were given the confidence to be like, well, we don't feel like we're done being parents. This one's almost fully baked. So
how old were they when they had you? Were they like mid-20s?
They were young, dude. They were 25. No, 24, 25.
That's like a normal age for human people to make new people. It was for a long time. That was late.
For sure.
Not that long ago. It's wild. My sister was born when my mom was 17. Barely. Weird. So it's like, yeah. I mean, 25 is like you could reasonably have some of your shit together by then and be ready for a kid. Could.
Totally.
Let's
Totally.
not
Yeah.
measure it against our artist friends. But you could. They clearly did.
Totally.
But they also didn't rush to make another baby because of the complications and all the different stuff. They were like, we count ourselves lucky. Trent's okay.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think they were very responsible in becoming parents and like making sure it was very intentional. But I just remember turning 25 and be like, this is the year that my parents had me. And I feel like I still don't know how to do my taxes yet. But
were your parents, you said they're in high school together. Mine were too, actually. So they're about the same age? Like exactly?
Yeah. Dad was born in 68. Mom was born in 1969.
Yeah. Okay. So you know what I think about sometimes is people whose parents were different ages, like dramatically, like their dad's like 15, 18 years older than their mom. And so it's like they have that year twice. You and I were both like, wow, 25, wow, 27. I'm going through it. But then they get to be like, wow, I'm 21, just like my mom was. And then 17 years later, like, this is the year my dad became a parent.
And I remember how I felt when I was my mom's age. Now I feel this.
Right. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're missing out, man. We're missing out. We're too conventional. So what is the work like in the family? What are they leaving every day to go do? Are they leaving?
Sure. Yeah. My mom, this is a long one, so we'll go through it together.
Go ahead.
Mom worked as a public high school theater arts teacher for like a solid 13 years, took a step back for a while, and now she's back teaching middle school art. She had like, I think close to 10 years of just her own studio practice. Like that was her full-time gig. And I think a combination of wanting to get back in the classroom, wanting to help kids, and also probably retirement benefits and like...
she does visual art now, and she did theater art then.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah. And she's always been
a visual artist.
Yes. Yeah, totally. She, the way I understand the story is that there was never any question that she was going to go to college, even though she was like the first gen college student.
Right.
And has since become like the first generation master's degree holder in the family, which is pretty chill. But the understanding, I think, that was set by her dad was like, you're going to go to college, study what you want, but you need to be able to get a job when you get out. And so I think I've never actually talked to her about it, but I wonder sometimes if she was like, I want to be an actor. And then maybe there was hey, what about getting a degree in theater education? And so I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. Love my grandpa, and wouldn't be surprised if that was the messaging.
Do you still talk to your mom?
Oh yeah.
You should ask her.
Yeah.
Let me know.
Totally. Yeah.
I find that stuff fascinating, man. Why we end up doing stuff. I mean, that was where I came from. And I try to explain this to people sometimes in the difference in education, which a lot of the show ends up being about. And in Texas public high school, it felt like you could teach public theater in high school. That was the only next thing. Like, what the fuck else do you do? Like, you go to a state school. Like, I'm in Texas, so it would be like UT or Nacogdoches, like SFA or Southwest Texas. Some of these like state schools, whichever one you could get into and you could afford to go to, you would go there. You'd get your bachelor's degree in theater and take a bunch of liberal arts shit, and then you would go find a gig and take over for one of the old dying ladies somewhere and take over their theater department and be the young, new, hip theater teacher. Yeah. And it's like, that was the only career path, if you were into theater in high school, that I can ever remember anyone promoting. No one was like, have you thought about going to New York to try to be an actor? That wasn't even a thing. It was like, what if you want to be in movies? Like, we didn't even talk about it. It's like, you like theater, you could teach theater at the same level you're at now. And I think that's it's an interesting job to have, but it's also just an interesting cycle to be in. What is it like for you growing up, seeing that as what she does? Are you interested in theater versus dance versus, like, where do your interests start?
Yeah, let's see. I mean, it was always, my dad and I were always kind of the stagehands, helping her get ready for things. So, building flats.
Yeah,
learning how to use a fly system at probably a way too early age.
Small enough to fly into the.
No, I was a pretty heavy kid, so I don't think they were ever worried
Yeah,
about
me
that.
too. High five.
Yeah, but no, from a very early age, the sense of because my dad, studied theater too. Funny, there's a parallel there. He studied lighting design, and I know that
Oh,
that's kind of
word.
where your School of the Arts journey started. Yeah,
That's
so
right.
both my parents very firmly in the theater. Their summer job when they were in high school, when they couldn't work in their high school theater, was there's an amusement park called Carowinds
Yeah.
near yeah, you know Carowinds.
Yeah.
Cool. Apparently,
It's in
like
the
back in the
Charlotte
80s,
area.
totally. Yeah, back in the, firmly in the mid 80s, like Back to the Future time.
Right.
They were at Carowinds, they would do like full productions, full stage productions, like all singing, all dancing.
Sure.
And that was something you went to go do in late July in North Carolina because it was air conditioned.
Six Flags did the same shit in Texas. You could go to the Six Flags and see like really good shows, like cool, full on like Broadway level stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was their gig. My mom at one point was a character. She like put on a character suit and, walked around and told kids hello. So that
Hell
was cool.
yeah.
Yeah. She's always had that like hospitality, but not in the like Southern hospitality, but like a deep, I see you. Let me get you what you want, what you need. Right. Hospitality. Yeah.
Like a theater teacher.
Exactly.
Let's so what about Pops? You said he had theater training, but what was he doing for work?
Dude, my dad's had such a wild career. Yeah. Theater training was always in the theater realm, like just building, making, lighting design, you name it. The way I understand the story is that they moved down to Alabama. He was doing some like freelance work as a machinist at the time. And then funny enough, in Huntsville, I think there are more PhDs around Huntsville, like per capita, than most other cities because there's a lot of like space program work that goes on there. And so he started working with a company that was building autonomous drones. And this was like, and I feel, okay talking about that because they're not the same ones that are like, causing problems around the world today. These like, they would always crash. That's the story. My dad's like, yeah, we never got them to work at the end.
Right. But I'm from the back when that was bad. And that we were bad at it. So I didn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. Like I can guarantee you this did not contribute to anything bad happening.
Totally advocate responsibility based on our incompetence.
Yeah, I think my dad was really good at his part.
I'm sure. It just, technology evolves, of course.
And it's so funny now, like I started flying drones as a hobby with him when I was like in high school. And he was just like, this stuff's crazy. Do you understand like how hard this was in the 90s, But right. So his work picked up from that. I think it was a pretty easy pivot to make in the Southeast to go from working in Huntsville on trying to get drones to fly to theme parks. And so he was working on like motion control platforms for Disney, Orlando. He worked on the Lion King Broadway musical.
He's like a turntable guy.
The turntable and then some, like
I bet.
Complex
I'm oversimplifying it.
Oh yeah, no. But
he's what the people at the top who have to pay for it would call the turntable guy. And he'd be like, he has advanced engineering training. He's incredibly intelligent. But like, yeah, right. Turntable guy. We need him over here.
Right. Yeah. And I think my dad's attitude was like, I'll be your turntable guy all day long. Yeah.
100%. Mouse has got deep pockets.
And yeah, because he, from what I understand, right, came from a working class family, like had to grow up kind of quick, a little bit rougher neighborhood from the stories he's told me. My grandparents on his side both worked in a home light factory. Home light makes like chainsaws, string trimmers. That's what they worked on. But I think he wanted a different path. And so was like always super gifted and mechanically inclined and like creative in general. But that's like, that's his superpower. And so he was able to take that and run with it. And so he did a lot of traveling too, like in my early years. So I grew up like my earliest memories are like in Long Beach and in Osaka, Japan, because we were traveling with him a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty cool. I was just watching a documentary about Okinawa. And I know that's not the exact same place, but Japan's not gigantic. And they were talking about how the people over there, and I think this is relevant to what we're talking about, but the Okinawa in particular has the highest concentration of people who live over 100, like than almost any other place in the world, despite what happened like in World War II and all the different stuff. That's still generation. Like those people are still, they remember that. They were like those people who are 100 right now. And they're like, it's wild to me that what mostly so much of what they found is they were like, just don't get stressed out and try to find a way to enjoy life. And that's what they often find with people who live long. It's like, just don't be in a fucking bad mood. It'll kill you. And it really seems, first of all, your disposition and temperament seems like just very chill. I don't know if you're like this all the time, because I'm just really getting to know you now, but you seem like just a super chill dude. Just in this podcast, I'm getting like an ASMR vibe from your tone. It's like a lot. No, it might just be a nice microphone. I don't give you too much credit, and it sounds like what I appreciate about your parents is that they really probably inspired you with their choices to not take things for granted and to be very creative in what they're doing, what they're spending their time on, when it would maybe even be easier under certain circumstances, just like go a more conventional route, you know?
Yeah, Rob, I was almost a business major at UNC Chapel Hill. Like
Boo.
Had applied, had gone.
Right.
Yeah. No. I mean, I feel the same way, but no shade to the business majors out there. But like, I just got kind of caught up in the thing where it's like, all right, well, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, my parents the whole time were like, we support you no matter what. And are you sure you don't want to go to art school?
What the fuck is that?
Right? It's usually the reverse.
Yeah, you've heard enough episodes of this podcast to know that that's not what the fuck people normally say.
No, man. So very lucky in that regard. And mainly them and some friends also in high school being like, I don't know, dog, like you could go to business school, but that's not what we're seeing.
What about theater versus dance versus different performing stuff? Like, how do you find yourself where you find yourself?
Sure.
Why aren't you a painter?
I hopefully still have plenty of time left. We'll see.
Hey, hell yeah. I love that attitude.
Yeah, man. I mean, was watching movies all the time. Like that's still one of the things my dad and I enjoy doing together is just find something, let's go watch it. Mm-hmm. So very early on, I was always the kid, like I think I saw a meme a few weeks ago, but 7 years old, walk out after seeing like the Crocodile Hunter movie or whatever. You're like, I'm the Crocodile Hunter now.
Yeah. Just let it inform your personality for a couple months.
Totally.
100%. I watch too much Cake Boss and I sound way more Hoboken than I need to.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, to this day, I just finished The Bear on Hulu and I'm like, I want to learn how to make a really good cannoli.
Yeah, right.
But I think what was going on there was just internalizing the themes and stories going on and kind of taking from my mom's just like super wide creativity, attention to detail, taking from my dad the importance of like first and foremost creativity, and then the importance of like, yes, art is magic. And also to make the magic, you got to know the technical side. Or at least be like conversational with it. So those started to coalesce and then do the thing a lot of kids do. Like you're in high school, someone's got a camera, you've got a camera, you've got a project, like let's make a video. And like really started leaning into it and be like, oh, I can do this. And this is an option for me long term. Because my parents, like, going to Carowinds, they the dancers and actors that would come in for those shows I mentioned were School of the Arts students, like on their summer off. And so even though they hadn't gone there, they knew like those are the School of the Arts kids, like they're really hardcore. Even if the show was like Endless Summer on Ice or something.
So the reputation was already in your head from a young time of like, well, that place is serious.
Totally.
That makes a lot of sense. What do you think was this is something I've been asking people recently. So if you graduate in 2018, so when you get there 4 years earlier, right?
Yeah.
You have an expectation of what you think this school is going to do for you. You're going
For
to
sure.
either borrow money or spend your own money or use your parents' money or promise to pay it back later, whatever. This is huge fucking choice to make, as flippant as some young people can be in that position. But you made it, and you had an expectation of that will be worth. And then we fast forward 4 years later, and now it's May and it's 2018. How are you feeling about what your expectations were? Obviously, I don't think even an 18-year-old is so naive to think it's not going to change and something's going to be different. But what is the difference between were you 18 when you started or 17?
Would have been 18 because I spent a year at UNC Wilmington beforehand.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah,
that's an important part of the story.
Yeah, I joke sometimes that was my gap year, but Wilmington's its own college. And
yeah, it's also at the beach. So college at the beach it's still college, I guess, but it's at the beach.
For sure. The story behind that was that by the time I had my, change of heart around it all, it was too late to apply to School of the Arts. And also I didn't really have a foundation besides the knowledge. I feel like I could go do that and be successful, or find whatever my version of success is by getting the education there. But it was too late at that point to apply. So, Wilmington, I applied over the summer.
Never too late for the beach, baby.
That's right. Yeah. They're like, you want to start in late August? Sure, dog.
They're like, shit, man, we just started accepting applications last week, bro. So you're good.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah. What were you doing there? What did you do at Wilmington? Did you like it?
A lot of shit by myself, dude.
Really? You just rolling around solo?
Yeah. Not always by choice. Like I said, would never try to dunk on another college that people go to, but it wasn't my scene. I really appreciated that I was able to get the foundational classes of this is what a C-stand is. This is the French New Wave. Let's watch the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, those things.
That's a good way to get ahead for sure. I mean, it's not like you. Okay, so that's a case that I've been building, but I want to get back to that in 1 second. So answer my other question, because that piece of information is important. The expectations of intro versus outro, where are you? Did you feel and I give you a couple of touchstones, you've heard other people on the podcast, but for those listening, some people are they get out and they're like, oh shit, I just wasted all that time. Obviously, that's an extreme feeling that not many people share. And I don't get many people who want to do a podcast about the school that feel that way. But I've talked to people who feel that way for sure. Of man, I should have just moved to LA, or I should have just whatever the fuck. Sure. Then there are people who have super right on track. They're like, that's what I thought it would do. I learned pretty much everything I want to learn. And I'm just on to the next stop trying to figure it out. And then there's a lot of people kind of in between. But where did you feel?
Dude, I feel like I made out so lucky. I went in with pretty high expectations of, I think this is what I'm going to get from this education. And after graduating, it was wow, that was even better and cooler and more informative of my own growth than I thought it ever would be.
Hell yeah, dude. That's a glowing review.
And I am not doing anything. I'm not doing what I studied right now, right? I was in the cinematography program in the School of Film, not a camera assistant, not a camera operator, not doing that thing in New York or LA, which
went straight to DP.
No, not that either. That's the funny thing. Yeah. But I think it speaks to the training, at least that I received, of it's more of skill set and mindset. And if you can round up 12 of your best friends and make your second year film with $2 and the equipment that the school gives you, that gives you some really good tools, I think. Yeah,
that's true. So what are you doing now?
Man, yeah. I laugh because I usually
don't jump that quickly. We're only 40 minutes in or something, but brought it up.
Sure. Yeah. I'm laughing because my work desk is at a co-working space right now, and they always do these tours. So they'll bring people in to look at this room that my desk is in. They'd be like, what do you do, Trent? And every day I'm like, man, I don't even know. But to give you some context, during 2020, I got my drone pilot's license. So kind of building off of that. thing that was a hobby for my dad and I in high school. That's been like I would hold it similar to like a lot of actor friends that you have who are like bartending. It's kind of my bartending job right now. And I'm at least able to like use a camera for a thing. Right. But when I was in the film school, they started like 2016, 2017, they started offering immersive media classes. So that's like virtual reality, augmented reality, you name that type stuff. And this was like as all the tech was blowing up.
Right.
And I was like, I think that's what I need to do, because
that's a really great idea.
Talk about magic, and had so much support, especially like Bob Keane, who's still in the production design department. And like, just really, I don't know, he helped me so much. And the dean at the time, she was also really supportive, and trying to like make a whole, because I was like skipping cinematography classes every now and then to go play with the like VR stuff.
Right.
So working towards being able to do even more and more of that in the career right now. You know, it's funny that the VR medium, the way it's evolved right now, there's so much focus on games, which is like, you know, not going to shit on anyone making VR games, but I like feeling the emotional impact and like, you know, starting to cry wearing a VR headset, watching this beautiful experience as a student, and wanting to be like, how do we do more of that?
You know what I think about VR? I think VR is the only way to save the theater.
Word.
That's my theory. I put this together recently. So the theater doesn't work on a screen. That's the whole point. Everybody knows that. It is a separate thing. And it has always been a separate thing forever. And here's the thing that's wild. I lose track of who I talked to on this show. So you maybe can tell me later who I just talked to about this. But I was just talking to somebody about the dynamic between high school and college / professionalism. Back in the day, there was a drama club and there was AV club, and they were clubs that weren't even classes. You could be in clubs. You could have a club class period, and it kind of worked like electives, or you could have a fully outside of class club. And they were two totally different groups of kids. And I'm talking like 80s. AV Club was like back then, and they were working with the projectors. They were working with whatever technology they had at the time. Maybe they had a campus radio station. They did that. The announcements, that was all their shit. Then for reasons I fucking will never understand, as the media technology exploded, the availability of media education in public high school in America went the fuck away. And in place of it, mostly everywhere, you found expanded theater programs that would do things like Broadway level musicals for thousands of dollars. They would get huge funding, like football team money. And which is great. I love the theater. I grew up in these programs. I ain't shitting on that. But the idea that we all are training for years, starting in some of us like 6th grade when we start doing elective art stuff, you could take theater from like sometimes elementary school, but almost consistently 6th grade all the way through high school, to the point where you're like, damn, I've been doing this for 7 years. Like, this is what I do. This is who I am. And then you go to graduate and everyone's like, well, don't get a job in the theater. That's the dumbest shit you could ever do, because it doesn't pay, and that's a terrible idea. And you're like, well, then why the fuck did you let me major in it for 7 years? That's so stupid. And then they're like, well, you know what you should do? We can't wait to see you in a movie. And like, I don't know how to be in a movie. Where we make a movie? This school doesn't teach movie class. A lot of stuff is changing. And if you live in a cool area, some of this is different, but consistently, theater programs are everywhere and media programs are not. Bringing this back to the VR thing, the only way to smooth that out is to marry the idea of media production and theater. The reason why theater cannot ever make as much money is because you can't have as many ticket holders. That's it. You make a movie and you can have $400 million worth of ticket holders in like not that long. You can get that and you can make that money back now. You don't have to run the show for 10 years. Theater, you got what? You're lucky if you got 1,000 seats in the house, unless it's this arena. And then are you doing theater for an arena? You can't do theater for 10,000 people.
Right.
Much less $400 million worth of ticket holders. Unless you could put on a headset that wasn't uncomfortable and get the live theater experience of sitting in the front fucking row, watching someone like Bryan Cranston, who's both a theater and film god that you respect, play in Beckett or some other esoteric thing that most people wouldn't even know. You got to take all the ease and all the comfortability and put that together with the uncomfortable thing in just a little sliver so that people can digest it. And theater has become so esoteric, and so that little sliver is the whole fucking thing that no one can get to it. No one can afford it. And then when they get in the seat, it goes way over their fucking head half the time. And that's why it's been dying. So I think what you want to do and what you're interested in. And that's why School of the Arts is such a cool ass place, because you got the people who are interested in your shit that you just talked about and the theater people on the same fucking campus. And that's the shit they should really be focusing on. Do that. Make really dope VR theater and go save the fucking business. Because that is the only way to do it. The more we are addicted to screens, give them a fucking screen. Give them two right in front of their eyes with headphones and a little haptic feedback thing, whatever the fuck. Like, bro, that's the future. That's the future 100%. And you can do augmented. There's ways to do it. You can go to virtual concerts now, and it's pretty fucking cool. It's not that far away. I just watched Blink 182 that I cannot afford to go see. I have a nice movie, like a TV producing job, and I make pretty nice money. I can't afford to go see these fucks, but I watched them in the front row.
Yeah. Wow.
Above 4K with my nice AirPods in. And I was like, on a Meta Quest 2, not even a nice $3,500 Apple, look at our RoboCop thing. That one, I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's so fascinating.
This is exciting to you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of your guests recently, they, in a way I never even thought of before, but they boiled down like, theater is the magic of the present moment and live performance. And it's like, put that in people's living rooms. And not only are we watching a performance now, but there's interactivity. Like there's some really cool work happening right now. A group called Tender Claws out on the West Coast, like they're doing live interactive VR performances. And like, so they're interacting with people, could be on the other side of the country, could be in a different country, but there's like an interactive element where, there's some crazy stuff going on in the back end. And like, the actors having to learn how to use the controllers and like be very like, have a high degree of finesse to be like, all right, select this prop, place it here. And it just looks like a magic trick happening in real time. And like so much performance capture, because for a while, right, performance capture was the like Andy circus, put all the dots on your face. All right, it's going to take a month to render all this.
Right.
And now with game engines, it's damn near instant. So I'm so, and it's all so early still, like I'm so excited.
And then you pair that with the AI stuff and it gets really interesting, man, because when we don't have to come up with it all anymore, that cuts down on the time of it getting made into a thing. I was watching something on video games recently, and I don't know what video game it was. I think maybe it was Cyberpunk. It doesn't matter. It was some video game where they had to translate the game into a billion languages, right? And the mission, like the game had to be dubbed and stuff like that. But they didn't just want to dub it. They wanted the lips to match for every language. So they didn't just want to have it be like, I'm speaking in English and then you hear your language. We recorded it with another guy or whatever. They do that. But they're like, but we can't afford to facially map 20 voice actors per character. So they developed an AI engine that does the mouth so that the facial capture is the original actor, but the AI can like make the shape of the mouth based on the new language, and they don't have to photo capture anybody.
Totally. Yeah. it's magic. I mean, I have a lot of strong feelings about what machine learning should and shouldn't and can and can't be used for. But like,
yes,
I've
agreed.
seen the cheat sheet that like animators use. Like, if they're making this sound, this is what the mouth looks like. And so if you feed a
And
computer that, and
animators
then
have been doing that forever. Right.
yeah, and you feed a computer that, you feed a computer what it sounds like for 3,000 hours of that, absolutely, it'll turn out your cyberpunk in whatever language you want.
Yeah, exactly. And it is both like scary and exciting. It's more fun to be excited than it is to be scared. So I spend more time being excited because I like to have fun. So I don't like being scared. There are definitely drawbacks, and I think obviously we're seeing that in the strikes now and how much that creative stuff, because the AI is built on creative property and it is based on the likeness of human people, somebody, and yeah, it's absolutely an important thing that we need to pay close attention to. But I mean, it's like any other thing that we harness, right? It's like literally the Oppenheimer plot line. It's like we got this brand new thing that is super powerful, and it's so cool that we have it because it can do all sorts of really useful things. We should also be super fucking careful about who has this new thing, because there's people out there who don't have the best intentions. That's just what it is.
Yeah, what's the line from Oppenheimer, right? It's like, there's a very small but non-zero chance that this will end the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's been true for several things that have come up. And AI might be the biggest one ever that's on the horizon. But with that coming back to, like I said, trying to do our silly little plays with it, which is where our expertise ends. I really do think that's the key. And I think that is something that, unfortunately, in my experience, I'm a very technical person, as you probably have heard at this point. But like, I'm the one who knows how the microphones work. I used to get called. I haven't said this on a podcast in a long time. I'm going to say it again because it's hilarious to me. I used to get called out of Bob Franciscone's math class, which while I was at school was considered maybe one of the most important classes you're taking while you're here, by his wife, the dance teacher, Molly, who would come from her studio because the stereo wasn't working. And she knew that one kid used to be in DMP. And twice she came to his room while we were doing stuff and opened the door, because she was the only one who could do that, because she was his wife. And she would be like, "Hey, Rob, the stereo's broken." And I would be like, "Yeah, I'll be right back." And I would like hobble over and try to fix the thing. So this is just to give you the bigger context of, I've spent my whole life around performing creatives. They are largely not familiar with technology. Some of them don't know how their fucking iPhones work. Some of them do. Some of them don't. And she was an older lady. I'd be careful about that too. She was not someone who maybe always did. But this was a stereo from 1986. So whatever. Point being, the group of people who are making the thing we were talking about saving are not always the how do we use a machine to solve the problem kind of people. Their brains don't work that way. That's okay. They think of other helpful ways. I've always been a where's the machine to do this. And I was raised by very mechanical people. And so I've always been that kind of person. And I'm always like, how can we use that to improve it? It's hilarious to me that the film and the theater business doesn't overlap more than it does. Hasn't forever. Like, even on Schoolyard's campus, just in the last 10 years, they've really started to like, let's have official faculty assigned to the way these people get along. Let's intentionally put these things together. When for years it was like, you can use the actors if you want. And so it's a weird energy. And I don't understand why these two, because you're like 20 seconds away from you're the same. They're the same. But they can't even call a gobo by the same fucking thing. And one thing, it's a lighting template, and the other goes on a stand. They're not even on the same page on what shit is called, much less trying to work together to save each other's jobs.
Yeah. And that's what excites me about places like the School of the Arts. It's the incubator for...
There's a chance to teach him.
Totally. But yes, also, I very much agree with the sentiment. Yeah. Yeah, it's
Do
funny.
you think
Yeah.
that's part of what you are interested in doing with VR? Like what part of that and the AR VR thing and that advanced technology, what do you want to do with it? Because you said an experience, but what is an experience that you would make?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you what I'm doing now and hope to keep doing. And then I'll give you my like kind of larger platform I try to stand on. Because I feel
Hell
like
yeah.
I think I remember being like a junior at school and being like, I don't think the job I'm gonna have exists yet. And that's okay. And also that's wild. So right now I interview folks, families, sometimes nonprofits, and sit down with them with an immersive camera and conduct like a life story interview. So if it's like an older family member or someone in their, their wisdom years, both getting their story, because that's really hard for families sometimes, I think.
Right.
And then also recording it. Sometimes it's just a video. They just want a video. That's cool. But other times in a like more immersive 180, like stereoscopic 3D video, so that however many years down the line, their maybe grandkids could put on a headset and feel like they're sitting across from that person.
They just showed that shit at the Apple keynote.
Amazing. Right. So that was one thing. It was like the dad recording the birthday party, right? With like the scuba mask. Or were you talking about a new recent
I think
keynote?
so. I don't know. It was the recent one I just watched the one from September. This is like the 18th. It was like a week ago.
Oh,
They announced the iPhone 15.
I need to watch that.
Bro, they put on the headset and they watch a video of like grandma, and it's the whole fucking thing that you just said exactly. I'm not even gonna repeat it. It was that exact technology. Me and my wife went, oh shit. Like excited, but also a little bit like, man, that's fucking Black Mirror. 100% that is that episode of Black Mirror where it just like you get stuck in the memories and you live your life rewatching everything instead of making anything new, of course, is the scary downward slope of that, being able to live in a memory that surreally.
Yeah.
Especially if you experience tragedy.
Totally.
What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think there's a huge responsibility. If you're walking people into that space, like you got to be a really fucking good steward of that person and their story.
Well put.
I think folks that I've talked with, I'm very like almost first thing that comes out of my mouth is like, this is your story and your words. I just want to help facilitate and like bring in this crazy looking robot camera so that it's not just a voicemail and that's the only thing your family has left of you. Wow. Or spoke with someone recently. They had like young grandkids. I was like, hey, what do you want to make sure that they hear from you? Like what's something that you want to be sure to pass on to them? I'm gonna leave the room, but I'm gonna leave the camera rolling. And like I had, brought that up a couple of days before, so they were ready for it. But man, like in the edit bay, sitting down and watching that back, this guy's like looking directly into the camera, talking to his like grandson a decade in the future, pretty much. I'm just like, wow, that's really powerful. So being able to create that.
Every day at work for you is like the fucking second act finale of Interstellar, where you just fucking weep like Matthew McConaughey and everybody's like, fuck you and I love you. And it's just like, God damn, man. What are you made of stone?
But that's like, it's not every day. I've got my bartending drone job.
Of course, you're droning on.
But that is my dream long term, is to be able to do that work on a pretty regular basis. Because as soon as I kind of knew like, all right, you can play video games with this. And, through presence, through like, quote unquote, tricking people's reptile brains into presence. If you use it responsibly, which I think we always should, and you're a good steward, then you can create some really emotionally impactful, positive experiences for people. Because that's what it is. Like you're giving people a memory. Man. Thanks, Rob.
It is beautiful and it's super cool. And it's I'm not just adding super to things. I have a bad habit of that, but I am telling you that I think it has tremendous value to spend your time on something like that. And here's where I think my wife gets a little more nervous about stuff like that than I do. I'm not so scared about it for a couple of reasons. First of all, I don't worry so much about other people. I think about myself, and I recognize that other people, man, there's a lot of people out there that struggle with all kinds of different shit. And there's a bunch of things in my life that I love that I know make other people's lives worse. I like alcohol. I don't have a problem with it. I know it fucks other people up to a point where it ruins their whole goddamn life, but I don't want them to take it away from me because they can't, or don't have a good situation.
Yeah.
And I feel that way about a lot of stuff. That's where I start to feel very libertarian, where I'm like, I know, I get it. And your relationship to those things, those substances, those activities may be complicated, maybe negative, but mine are positive, and it actually enriches my life to be able to like play Grand Theft Auto, and it doesn't like rot my brain and make me want to go outside and beat up hookers and like steal cars. So I can discern the difference, and I'm more like, I hope people don't go down a slippery Black Mirror slope, but I would rather Trent make this for me because I'm not going to abuse it. I'm going to use it to have a positive experience that was otherwise impossible before you made it possible. And I think that that's really cool. I've got loved ones that are gone now. My wife's got, her grandmother passed just a couple years ago, and very important to her. And I cannot imagine what it would be like for her to be able to just sit at the poker table as it would be for them again with a headset on. I don't think that's a negative thing. But I'm with you, man. I think it's like, how do you properly develop that stewardship, and then while respecting that libertarian idea of like, look, it's your footage, do whatever you want to do. We made your thing. It's your thing. It's your grandma, whatever. But at the same time, how do you regulate? How do you help make sure that it's not like, but don't plug in your headset and put it on plugged in and sit on your couch for the next 3 days missing grandma. Like, get up, get a drink, go eat, live your life. Like, how do you have any responsibility as the person making that possible? Like you said, to like, how do you develop that and not infringe on people's like liberty or privacy or whatever? It's a big question.
Yeah.
You don't have to have an easy answer. I don't expect one.
It is. No, I appreciate the thoughtfulness and the depth of the question. Maybe this is a good answer, maybe not.
Hey, man, I bet you're going to spend a lot of time thinking about this, so don't rush to answer it now.
I think relationship with the person is what will inform how I handle that, right? And being able to, because if I'm sitting across from people's family members trying to like, all right, they just said this and then they were born this year, so maybe I should ask about, like, if I'm doing that math in my head, I think there's a similar game, quote unquote, to be played with assessing, is a person that's coming to me to commission this likely to fall prey to that?
That's
or are they going to be the
though.
person? Right.
Yeah.
I will be thinking about this a lot, Rob, but it's, right? I mean, the good news is I feel like most of the folks, almost every single person I've ever given any kind of VR demo to, and that was my job for like 9 months. I was at this startup out in San Francisco, and that was part of my job, was to give people demos. Most people are like, they have the experience and they're like, cool, and they keep going. But it's getting more and more possible every day for that Black Mirror side to exist, I'm sure.
I think the big difference is talking to somebody like you at all. Because one day I think it'll be a thing where they don't need your help to make the thing. At some point, they'll be able to make the thing by themselves and live in it all without any consult, without any. And that's where it starts to get dangerous, is when you put every single tool into the amateur hand. I mean, like you start handing out katanas to every single person, someone going to chop their damn fingers off because they don't know how to hold the fucking thing. We have the same problem with guns, where it's like you start giving guns to everybody, people going to get shot. Like, this is what's going to happen. And it's tough to regulate because you always have to work back, right? I've said since the beginning of this conversation, you seem like a very empathetic, compassionate person. I think it's great that you're doing work like this. It's great. Awesome. I would trust you to do something like this for me, but that's personal. That's based on you. If anybody, is there now a qualification to be like Trent in order to get Trent's job? You have to, in order to be the person who gives this experience or regulates it for people, do they have to meet a certain criteria? It's like, because that's always the step back. Because it's like, all right, well, we'll just trust Trent to make sure everybody's cool. Like, okay, great, because Trent's great. But what happens if Trent quits and Kevin takes his job and Kevin sucks and there's no rules in place because he's malicious or he don't give a fuck or whatever? That's when it starts to be tough. But again, I come back to, I want it to happen. And I kind of trust myself to get it figured out. But there's gotta be some responsibility. I think it's tough. but it's good work and it's important work. And I think that's really cool that you're doing that. What does that look in a bigger way for you? I mean, I don't know who you work for or how you do it now, but like, would you like have your own service that you offer people that's in that realm? Or would it be like, I'd love to get hired at Apple and be their interactive VR family guy? What do you think about that?
Totally. I am wide open to whatever I'm not even sure is an option right now. As it exists currently, I think it makes the most sense doing it as me, Trent, for some of the reasons that you mentioned already.
Agreed.
I think people can feel intention and like, am I going to do my level best to walk people through all of it in a really authentic, compassionate way versus like, give me some money and I'll make a 3D video of your grandma, you know?
Yeah. Although that should be one of your promos. Do at least one like that. That'll work on a fringe amount that you'll be glad that you collected. Yeah, 100%. It'd be like, at first we were nervous because that promo, but then we dove deeper, like, oh, he's cool and we appreciate that he's funny. So
totally. Yeah.
Because I want to hire that guy too. Maybe just to cut my lawn, but also I want to hire it.
Rob, you sure you don't want a VR video of your grandma? Nah, but just keep mowing.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I think about this a lot. I mean, it's still early days. Like I get maybe two clients a year right now, but it's really special when it happens. I think about the eventual and what I'm growing towards is like, that could be my full-time gig. Maybe I'm not even the person full-time. There are a lot of really talented, knowledgeable, qualified documentarians who, as I'm sure you know, documentary work is not always the most lucrative. So being able to kind of give them a space to use that talent in an unconventional way that's also helping families. Like I would love to be a job creator. Right now, there's only one job for it right now. But long term, I've thought about like, what's the day where an Apple or a Meta says, we'd like to buy your company?
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't know what
I think it is. I think you're right. I think what they're going to want to do is they're going to want to eliminate you. They may want to put you in some other position, but the idea that you're going to go to their house and do it, they don't care about that part of it the way that you and I just talked about it. And that's part of the problem. They want to put all of it in the hands of the user and let them determine, make whatever memory you want on the fly. Oh my God, I just realized grandma's here and blah, blah, whatever. Let's do it. I got my iPhone 19. Let's just shoot it right now. Yeah. And I do think it's, no matter what, as long as this becomes the thing that you are focusing on, that you're spending your time on, that you're putting your resources into and building something one way or another, whether they buy your company or whether they just go, we need what you know. So we need you over here and we're willing to pay you this to be here, whatever. That value that you create in yourself will get recognized when it's like the Wild West about what you're doing, like this genre, this specific thing of VR memories, AR, immersive, media and stuff like that is still, like you said, it's like you and like 50 other people are even trying to figure this out. And so at some point they're going to be like, they've got to constantly be trying to build teams of people who have a better understanding of this. Cause like I said, dude, that woman had that stereo in her dance studio for 30 years before I got there. She had plenty of opportunity to learn how it worked and she didn't. She wanted me to do it and they're going to want you to do it. That's what's going to happen. You're going to be the geek who was into it before everybody else, that they're like, oh shit, Trent's the guy because he's way ahead of us. There ain't nothing wrong with that. I tell everybody I know, if you can be the one person who knows how something works, if you work in a new office and you notice that everyone hates the copier, learn how to use the copier. Get better at it than everybody else. You will never get fired. But we can't get rid of him. Who's going to change the toner?
Yeah. When you were telling your mask story earlier, I was at least glad to hear that like you took your mask off before you went to fix the AV system and weren't.
I went in character. It's probably what Bob would have wanted. I probably would have gotten a better grade.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, And to that idea of like an Apple or a Meta coming, as it stands right now, who knows what anyone would do in that situation. But as it is right now, I would want to say like, nah, fam, but let me do this because I'm not a part of that machine. And like, that's why this is working right now. But who knows?
I
Yeah,
appreciate that instinct. And depending on what deal came your way, I would absolutely respect that choice. I think at this point, like I said, I'll just reiterate that I'm glad you're doing this kind of work. I think this kind of work is really important. I think it just confuses and even makes uncomfortable some people, frankly. And that's why it doesn't move quicker and doesn't have more resources. And I got to give it to Meta, honestly, on making the Quest 2 an affordable headset that started showing up in regular people's houses. Great move. They took a hit on that. If people don't know, basically Facebook, now Meta, bought Oculus, started churning out their own version of that headset that they call the Meta Quest. And they started putting out a VR headset at a price that was a loss to them because they're such a big company, just like Amazon for a long time. They're able to make that investment and they're putting it in people's houses for less than the price of a PS5 or a new Xbox. And so now all of a sudden, especially during the pandemic, people are like, I was one of them. We're like, I'll try it out. I just got this check from the government and I have food. So maybe I get a fucking headset and do something with that. And it was a great move because it got a lot more people involved in that. And you have to get people in large numbers involved in these big things or they'll never get the money to be cool and to be great. And I think this move from Apple to make an announcement of our first headset is going to be $3,500 is weird. Like, who are you talking to? You're just trying to piss off everybody? Like, sounds cool. I guess we'll find out what Reese Witherspoon thinks of VR. We'll read about it on her Instagram or some shit.
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting. Go
ahead.
Were you going to ask me what I thought about it?
No, I want you to finish what you're about to say.
I was just going to say that I think ever since the early headsets were coming out, the sentiment was like, Apple's going to make one of these at one point. And it's going to be like the fucking best one ever. But I think, they may have done that, but it's like, it's ready. The meal is ready before people have an appetite. So Reese Witherspoon might eat it.
Right. And we'll have to hear about how great it is from rich people, because that's how that works when you put something on the market that's like the third of a price of a car and like expect anyone to find it accessible. No one's going to get this thing.
Yeah. The whole medium, man, such complicated, like conflicting thoughts between like knowing the power of a medium, but knowing how it's being implemented in the marketplace right now. And
that's why VR and theater are going to save each other, because it's going to give the VR something to actually do. Because if you're not a gamer right now, you're like, why the fuck would I buy one of those headsets? Yeah. Well, you can sit front row at Hamilton. You can sit front row at Book of Mormon. You can sit front row at the Knicks. You could sit front row, at all these different things, UFC, and you can feel the cage rattle right in front of your face when he throws them up. Like, bro, that's the shit we need to triple down on. And then the money for like games and shit will be easy because we'll have millions of tickets sold to sit. And here's the thing. This is my theory too. You use this later. I'm giving this shit out for free because I don't fucking do this for a living. My theory is, you know what you really do? You sell experiences, not just what you're at, but who you're next to. So you're at the Knicks, but you're
watching
next
Knicks
to Jay-Z.
Got it.
That's dope. My theory on the theater thing too is, and you pay him one day, he's going to be there anyway. You just give him an extra fucking thing to sit next to a camera instead of sitting next to whoever the fuck he was going to bring.
Beyonce. Yeah.
B's on the other side. No, B's on the other side. That's part of the ticket.
Of course.
But you just take that one chair out, you pop a little fucking thing there, and you got 10,000 people in that seat. And you do the same thing in the theater where it's like, you don't empty it and just put a bunch of snowball mic looking things on a stick around the whole room. It's like real person, real person, real person, camera, real person, real person, real person. So the actors are still getting the feedback of the live audience. The audience that are virtual, 10,000 people in each one of those little cameras, they are getting the experience of a room full of other real people. Because that's the balance that's fucked up right now, is when you go see one of these fake concerts, there's no real audience. There's a bunch of other little avatars popping around and headset noise, and you got to make it feel like you're at the fucking theater in as many ways as possible. And that means not having a little cartoon version of yourself going like this. But no, that doesn't help. That doesn't feel real. But I really think if those two things can come together, man, it's commerciability for both, and they need it. They both need it. So you get to work, and then I'll hit you up in like a year and you let me know how that's going.
Sounds good, Rob. Gosh,
Trent, thank you so much for talking to me, man. I know we got to wrap it up, but this has been a blast.
Yeah, thank you. I look forward to hearing all the other episodes you do. Loved Sophia's. I'm going to see her in a week. So
she's the best, right?
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks for all you do, man.
Hey, man, I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate all that you're doing. I think it's really cool, important work. And, we'll definitely, you're somebody I can't wait to, take a little time, and then we'll come back and talk to you, check in with you, see how all this is going, because you're really on the forefront of something cool here, man.
Thank you, Rob. And thanks to Steven too.
Oh, of course. The great and powerful Steven Kopp. Couldn't do the show without him. I needed to say his name more often while we're doing it, but absolutely. We'll all be this episode's probably going to be out afterwards, but we're all going to be there in person for the homecoming thing that they're doing there. So we'll report back to everybody how it went. But hopefully in the future, and the reason I even bring it up, because I haven't been there yet, and if you're listening to this, I've already been there, is because I think in the future we'd like to be a part of it in a more big way. There was talks about maybe doing some stuff. We'll certainly be there, and we're going to be doing some of our own independent media and doing some on-campus interviews and stuff. We've got some stuff planned we're really excited about, but I'm hoping in the future that I don't know if I'll go every year, but like definitely, being there on a regular basis to kind of be a part of the whole festivities as at the Elephants. So if you're fans of the show, please stay tuned to updates about that, because we could be doing more and more stuff in the Winston-Salem area, and we'll let you know.
Awesome.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you, Rob.